Hi, I'm Coach Kell. Welcome to today's mental fitness video, part of our ongoing series in which we take a look at everyday mental challenges and discuss tools from psychology and neuroscience that can help. Today's message is from a friend of mine with an Instagram habit. She's not necessarily suffering a lot from it, but she's feeling a bit powerless to keep her phone out of her hands when she should be doing other things. Luckily, there's a way out, so let's get into it. So she writes in Instagram DM, "Hey Coach Kell, I'm addicted to Instagram X. I have a terrible problem with looking at my phone in the middle of things. Sometimes I'll be working and not even realize that I've picked up my phone and started tapping stories again on Instagram. I know it's probably shortening my attention span and making me less productive, but it feels like it's so hard to catch myself before I pick my phone up again and start scrolling. How do I finally get this under control?" Well, I'll ask her and you, the viewers, a question on this video. Is it me, or does it seem like social media just keeps inventing ways to become more and more addictive? Here's a hint. It's not me. This device is having an incredible effect on our brains. Think about it. Maybe 30 years ago, when we left the house, we might not look at a screen of some kind again until we came back home. And even then, when we did get back home, we were at the mercy of our television programming or VHS movie collections for any sort of entertainment on demand. If we wanted to see our friends, we had to call them on a phone connected to a wall, and they had to be home to answer it. If they didn't have an answering machine to record a message or the fancy caller ID box that showed you who called when they were out, they might not know you called at all. I can hear my friend now saying, "Okay, boomer, didn't I just tell you I have a short attention span? Why are you telling me all this?" And that's if I'm lucky enough that she didn't already switch from this video to Instagram before that. Stick with me here. Think about it. Back then, there were no phones in our pockets. If we felt the urge for entertainment in the passenger seat of the family car, the best we could do is turn on the radio, and that's if our parents actually let us do that. If not, and this is almost unthinkable now, we had to sit there. It's almost crazy to think that we had to endure the sound of our own thoughts and look up at real things out the window. We had to come up with ways to entertain ourselves or figure out how to patiently endure the car ride. Now, I'm not here to take some stance on smartphones and use sentences that start with the words "kids these days," but it's very worth noting from a neuroscientific perspective what happens when we have instant and tailored mental and emotional stimulation available within mere seconds of feeling an urge for it. Now that has a profoundly powerful effect on our sense of reward and gratification of our cravings. And as you might expect, social media apps are engineered to engage something called reward prediction error to keep you looking at them. That's a topic for another video, but for now, take it from me that there's no reason to beat yourself up for getting caught in this pattern. In any case, when we get that sneaky craving to open up Instagram, that's an increase in dopamine right there. Dopamine's the hormone and neurotransmitter that primarily makes us feel motivated. And when I say motivated, I don't mean excited. I'm referring to those periods of time where everything not related to a goal, whether that goal was consciously or subconsciously selected, seems to kind of disappear. Here's what I mean. Let's say our viewer friend is sitting at her desk, then pop, the craving to check some stories hits. Almost instantly, the work she was doing, the people and events around her, the various sensory inputs that her five senses are providing to her every second of every day just kind of vanish into the background. That is the dopamine effect. So what happens next? Her eyes shift to her phone on her desk, and let's give her the benefit of the doubt and assume that she has intentionally placed her phone face down so she can't see any notifications, so there's no stimulus that pulled her attention away from her job. This is all internal. Her brain automatically signals her body to begin the procedure of picking the phone up, looking at it to unlock it, swiping to the app page with Instagram on it, opening the app, and within maybe 2 seconds of the urge, her subconscious goal of indulgent stimulation is achieved. My whole point here is that phones have made it very possible for the time between any urge and very intense fulfillment of that urge to be a matter of mere seconds. Now, in terms of time, that is very tight feedback. There is no question to our subconscious that the urge to look at our phones can be satisfied by picking up our phones and viewing curated content that is extremely satisfying. And what's the result? Before we even know it's happened, An instant reward pathway has been set up in our brains, and the fulfillment of that reward is so much better than the alternative, continuing our desk work in this example, that the automatic craving reward pathway is chosen again and again and again. Now, that pathway involves a set of neural connections. And what happens when we use the same neural connections over and over? They get really strong. Finally, what is it called when we have a set of powerfully established neural connections for a behavior that we don't want? That's a bad habit. And the neural connections in bad habits are so strong that it's really hard to stop them in the moment. It's actually difficult for my friend to not look at her phone once she's started moving towards it. And this is the case even after she has arrived at the logical conclusion that in order to get more of what she wants out of life, she should probably stop looking at Instagram so much. That's how powerful our subconscious is. So what the heck do we do if 1, indulging a bad habit feels so good, and 2, it's almost impossible to stop the fulfillment of a craving for a bad habit at the onset? Here's how you do it. We're going to fix a bad habit by adding another bad habit. Hear me out. Neuroscientifically, yes, it's almost impossible to realize we're in the middle of fulfilling a bad habit and stopping ourselves in our tracks. The point in the bad habit where we kind of wake up is when the motivation to fulfill the bad habit is satisfied. In other words, when our dopamine level finally begins to drop. That drop allows all the other mental machinery to report in again, including the logical part of our brain that says, hell, I did it again. I opened Instagram. But since our decision-making ability is back online, we can actively use it to create another reward pathway that, in terms of time, is right next to the habitual one. I'll give you an example. Now, one of my favorite instant reward apps that's actually aligned with something that I want is Duolingo. I love learning new languages, and though I'm only fluent in this one, learning a new language is just a goal that I have that I believe is a good goal. Something that I want, that I feel is productive. And I'm not getting any ad revenue from Duolingo in this video, just for the record. The Duolingo app has these very quick lessons, so I can get a tiny bit of practice in almost any time of day. And since it's aligned with a consciously selected goal, the practice feels good. The way to disrupt the bad habit is to attach the new bad habit to it. In this case, every time we pick up our phone for some Instagram stories, as soon as we realize that we have automatically found ourselves browsing the stories, we consciously switch over to Duolingo and do a lesson or a few prompts. That engages a new reward pathway that is close enough in terms of time to the old one to disrupt and distort the old pathway. You could even think of it as a mental third wheel that you invite out to disrupt the mental date that you're on that you don't really want to be on. This significantly alters the subconscious activity of the old circuitry. This disruption allows our conscious control of dopamine to switch on and change the reward profile a little earlier each time, which is what happens when we think to ourselves, you know what? It's good that I switched over to Duolingo. I actually made some good progress on Module 3. It doesn't take long before we are switching to Duolingo before hitting the end of our stories, or even before opening Instagram at all. The conscious control of our actions is switching on earlier and earlier, since we sort of hijacked the reward signal away from the subconscious pattern. This allows us to use the same reward circuitry to switch to something that's aligned with what we consciously want for ourselves. The end game is eventually, you're likely to find yourself feeling a little urge to pick your phone up, but then saying, I can't do a Duolingo lesson right now because I have this work to do. So what does that mean? Well, it means we are actually struggling to choose between two good habits. And that is one heck of a way to get rid of a bad one. Now, while we engage in this sort of habit reprogramming, it's good to keep an accepting and flexible mindset for ourselves here that doesn't demand perfection. It's not about resisting the bad habit. It's about positively attempting to attach the new one to it. As long as you do that, that's enough. And if you want to learn some more cool things about mindset, including the one key ingredient for a mindset to be effective, check out my previous video on positive self-talk. There's a lot of powerful information there. I'll put a link to that video at the end and in the video description. That's what I have for today. If you have a question about a mental challenge you're having, send me a brief email at AutonoMe with an E, Coach Kel at outlook.com, and I'll see if I can help with a video about your topic. By the way, this bad habit disruption tool is part of a much wider set of foundational mental fitness courses for individuals and companies that I teach. I developed these courses from various studies in high-quality, peer-reviewed academic journals. I'm a practitioner. I literally practice what I preach, and I was able to use them to reduce my ADHD medication regimen by 90% while increasing focus, mental endurance, and holistic quality of life. If these tools can help me increase my natural focus and mental fitness by that much, I'm very confident that they can help you and your team. Again, if that sounds interesting to you, feel free to send me an email at autonomycoachkel@outlook.com. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.